Wellington was the Iron Duke, respected across the world, adored, and he was also completely a love object for women. They all fell in love with him. In fact, at some point, he was beating off his stalkers, and he even shared mistresses with Napoleon, his great enemy. But to really understand Wellington, we have to go right back to the story of his marriage. It's a very striking story because he met this young lady in Dublin when he was the aide-de-camp to the Lord Lieutenant. She was Kitty Pakenham, the daughter of the 2nd Baron Longford. She was young, she was 18, she was fun, she was vivacious. He was an army officer, up and coming. He was determined to marry her. But unfortunately, her family turned him down. They thought he was poor, of no family, had no prospects, and Wellington was utterly devastated by the refusal. He continued to achieve greatness. He achieved greatness in India and Europe. He became titled, he got a Knight of the Bath, he had huge amounts of money. And in 1805, a friend of the family told him that Kitty would receive his suit again and that the family would agree. So Wellington hadn't seen her for 14 years. He didn't know anything about her. One thing he did know was that she was well into her 30s and hadn't married. Now, by the standards of the time, that is really quite bad. A woman needs to marry by 22, otherwise she's getting a bit over the hill. Arthur and Kitty married in 1806, and the marriage was a complete disaster. She was timid and shy, he didn't find her attractive, he didn't love her. He saw himself as being trapped into a marriage, dragged into a marriage with an old maid. Pretty much he hated her. They had separate rooms, she did have 2 sons, but it didn't matter. He didn't love her anymore. And also, she wasn't a great wife for a military hero. He needed someone who was practical, who was no nonsense, who was happy being alone. Kitty was none of those things. So Wellington became very flamboyant with his mistresses. He'd go with anyone really, courtesans, married women, anyone who was pretty much showed an interest, including the great courtesan Harriet Wilson. She said to him, "I'm going to put you in my memoirs," and he said, "Publish and be damned," that famous phrase. There was also Mrs. Arbuthnot that he was very fond of, who wrote her memoirs about him, and also Lady Webster, who was definitely his mistress, and we also see him flirting with her at the beginning in the chapter 1 of Belgravia.